Hey, how you doing, friends? This is 0 days to expiration, and today is going to be a special show where we're going to now. Let me just place the caveat. I cannot guarantee that we'll have access to the tool that we're going to look at because today already, for the very first time, it told me that it was overloaded and I had to get in line or something and get a notification. But anyways, it speaks to its popularity and just how incredibly useful this particular tool is. So the tool is called ChatGPT, and it's a chat bot that was made by a company called OpenAI. Now, OpenAI is a startup, I guess you could say. I think they're a little bit more than a startup that had some original funding by Microsoft and Elon Musk and others. And it is a what's called a conversational artificial intelligence. I think the term is generative predictive text. And I think what that means is that you provide it with a prompt and then it replies with what it thinks is the next most logical thing to put out there. Now, it has been the way it was developed. I don't have all the details, but generally, it took data from the internet, terabytes and terabytes of data. I think it looked at Wikipedia and websites and Wayback Machine. It just looked at everything, huge amount of data. And then they trained it through this sort of positive reinforcement, I guess, with human training. And the training itself was quite expensive. I think it cost several $1,000,000 to just train it. And the AI then would make all of these connections with all of the words and the training. And they even admit that they have really no idea of how it actually does what it does. They know how it does it, but they can't explain the model and what was created with the AI. They can't look at it and say, oh, yeah, that's a logical connection to that, right? It's just too complex to actually do that. It would be like going into someone's brain and say, oh, yeah, it's obvious that when you connect these two neurons that it produces a house. It's way more complex than that. My other understanding is that they've taken all of this data, this, I don't know, terabytes and petabytes of data, and it's been reduced down to just a few hundred gigabytes or something ridiculous. But all of the connections and the tendrils and everything else that's in there somehow creates a kind of intelligence. It's not a conscious intelligence. It doesn't know what it's doing. It has no creative power, although it can simulate creativity and it can do things that would simulate or even mimic the patterns of real people or things or places or ideas. So, for instance, if I wanted to converse with ChatGPT as a trader and I wanted it to respond to me in a way that was knowledgeable of trading, knowledgeable of maybe a very specific type of trading, like knowledgeable of trading, I'm going to be very specific here, trading options or trading out of the money butterfly options. And then give it all other kinds of different specific criteria around what's important and the types of knowledge base that it needs to have so that when I start asking it questions, it is answering me based on that criteria that you set out for it. And the really cool part about it is that you can then provide it with this sort of landscape, the way you want it to act. It's avatar. And then you start asking it questions to do this or that, create a framework, do an outline, give me an explanation of this. And then as you're asking more and more questions, all of that stuff that you have asked and it has generated becomes part of that session. And it remembers what you've said. So you can refer back to things without having to repeat the whole avatar again, the whole concept. And so it just builds on it. And so in the session that you're in, it becomes more and more adept. Now, of course, the quality of the response that you get is directly related to the quality of the prompt that you give it. And so here's the thing with ChatGPT. A lot of people are saying that this is going to replace jobs, that a lot of people are going to become unnecessary, that you could use ChatGPT, for instance, to create a report, a book, an article, just about anything, It even codes. I've even used it to code in languages that I don't know, which aren't too many, but or not that experienced in, and it will create it, and then it works. Now you have to know just enough to be able to recognize when it screws up or it doesn't have the correct context, and so you can fix that just by giving it a different directive, and it will fix it, and it will even tell you why it didn't work, or how to use the code or how to employ it. So again, the quality of the response is directly proportional to the quality of the input. The thing is that you'll be surprised how high level or high quality the response can be, even with minimal input. But this is one of the reasons why I don't believe that it's going to directly replace people, at least people that have at least some monicum of talent and brains in them, which is very few, by the way. Sorry out there, but it's the old 80-20 rule where 20% of the people are basically ruling over everybody else. And most people are just brain dead. They are. They trudge through life that way. And those people are probably not going to make the most use out of ChatGPT. And the people who have initiative, that have brains, that have a logical and rational mind, that are creative and can come up with quality prompts, are going to be able to get amazing things out of this. Now, keep in mind that its background, its database, its brain, its memory is only comprised of things that happened before 2021. It has no ability to look at yesterday's entries into the internet. Although there are some tools now that are allowing that to happen, where they aggregate search results over the past few days and then use that as some of the prompt generating dynamic prompts so that you can do something like that. But that's not part of ChatGPT. Those are additional tools where they've used the API to manipulate it to do these type of things. And that's a different thing. Now, I'm sure that when OpenAPI comes out with their next version, which I understand is supposed to be in February, that there's going to be some significant enhancements. The current version that we're working on, I believe, is 3.5. So obviously there was a 1.0, a 2, a 3, a 3.5. There's going to be a 4. The next version is reportedly going to be up to 500 times better. Now, whatever better means, I don't know what better means. Is it going to be better like in earthquake better? Like going from a 6 to a 7 is 10 times better or worse? I don't know. I don't know what 500 times better means. Is it more data? Is it more quality data? Is it better training? I don't know. I really don't know. But regardless, if it is better than what it is now, it'll be remarkable. And we're really just a bunch of monkeys, and we repeat everything that we see. And we do have enough intelligence to be able to also conjure up new ideas and new concepts. But most concepts and ideas have been visited in some way or another. There's very little really, truly creative stuff. That's all good, but there's still creative stuff that happens every day with every person. I mean, we are creative people, but one might wonder, what if we're just a simulation and we're just no better than ChatGPT, that we're doing nothing more than reverberating the things that we've learned and accumulated over our lifetime, and people prompt us and then we just respond with what we think is the most logical thing to say or illogical thing to say. That could be. Maybe we're in a simulation. Let's go with the idea that we're not in a simulation, right? I'm going to just pretend that we're not in a simulation, that we're actually real, and we can use ChatGPT. Now, what this show is about, can we use ChatGPT as an aid to become a successful trader or successful at anything? Of course, let me just give you my own personal story. When I was growing up, early in my career, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I dropped out of college. I went directly to work for in the defense industry. I had the brains to be able to convince them that they should hire me as a research scientist. Seriously, I was hired as a research scientist in a defense-related thing, and I literally worked on the inertial guidance systems, laser-based inertial guidance systems of intercontinental ballistic missiles. That's what I did for a job, my very first job. I even worked with material sciences and developed infrared transmissive materials in vapor deposition tanks, growing these crystalline structures that we would use as they were infrared transmissive, and we would put them on the cones of heat-seeking missiles. I did that based on my ability to convince them, a young kid that was just 22 years old that had no idea about the world, but I did enough reading and enough research and had, I guess, a good enough brain to be able to figure stuff out and say, hey, I can do this work. And so they hired me, and they allowed me to help design guidance systems for nuclear missiles. So that was me. Now, but I got there because I was studious. And this is pre-internet. This is way before the internet. I didn't have access to the internet and the world's information. I had access to libraries and technical libraries and other semi-proprietary information that I would just delve through and just absorb. I could read a book on physics in a night and then take that and take the things that I needed and be able to regurgitate it out to somebody else and make them believe that I was competent. Now, of course, once you're in the job, you have to prove your competence, and I did that as well. Now, but it's still, I'm just accumulating and regurgitating information and then being smart enough to be able to do something with it. So if you're wondering, yes, that's how I started my career. I was a rocket scientist. But that's me. Anyways, in a way, that's kind of like what ChatGPT is. You just feed it information, and it can, because of its training, because of the human intelligence input to its training of how to think, it's able to then take all this massive amounts of information from all corners of the internet, and then through prompts, in response to prompts, be able to put out a semi-intelligent thing, right? That you would think, hey, this ChatGPT, it's almost like it's alive and knows what it's saying, but it's really not. On the other hand, I was alive, and I did understand what I was saying, and I actually did things like that. So anyways, that's ChatGPT. You put in a prompt, and it will respond with however sophisticated your prompt is. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about how you can create articles, and I've tried creating articles with them. And one of the problems when you put in information about, say, creating an outline for a blog, you have to be very specific about what you want. So for instance, if I wanted to create a blog for my website, a blog post, I could give it some background on the topical matter, give it some keywords that I wanted to introduce into there. I could, if I really knew what I was doing, I would make sure that it would also be SEO compliant, and then have the underlying structure and everything that it needed to be searched and indexed by a search engine. If I knew all that stuff, it could create a fairly competent piece. However, it would be missing like character. And it's very possible that some of the information that it regurgitated back may not be factually correct. So you have to make sure that you go in there and change that. And also that you put a little bit of, again, the quality of your prompt will determine the output. Now, but even then, it sometimes gives you what appears to be this sort of templated response. And so you need to have the smarts to be able to identify that, and also the background and the thing that you're talking about. So for instance, you can't just go and create an article on something that you know nothing about and think that it's going to produce something that is of such high quality that it's going to pass the muster of someone who is an expert looking at that. And they're going to look at this and they're going to say, it's kind of like regurgitating out of a basic book or something. It's like they went through and looked at the chapters and the sub lines of those chapters and then put together this thing. It doesn't really have any meat to it, no depth, no understanding, nothing. So I'll tell you, I've met people like that, Let me tell you a little story about somebody just like that. So I'm running this project for a very large insurance company. And my job was to build this very large team. They were incorporating or absorbing another company. And we're building out this huge technical team that needed to build the new product that was going to accommodate this new company coming in. And so we're looking for a database architect. And so we find a whole bunch of candidates. Now, I had directed everybody on the team on how to interview these people, the questions to ask, and the type of responses that they should expect, and et cetera. And then they were supposed to then grade the people because I couldn't do it all myself. So it was a pretty big operation. And we had dozens of candidates that would come through and we had to grade them. So anyways, there was this one guy that comes through and he was a Stanford graduate, had specific experience in data architecture, and he seemed really on top of things. And everybody gave him a great grade. And when I talked to him, I couldn't get him to answer me directly on anything. So for instance, I would even tell him the answer that I want, how I want it presented, and what I wanted him to tell me. And he couldn't even do that because he didn't have the ability to have that introspection on what I wanted. He could only regurgitate what he thought I needed to hear. And like I said before, it was almost as if he was looking in a manual on data architecture and just regurgitating the index or the table of contents. But everybody else thought he was great because he had such a great resume and experience, but he couldn't think on his feet and he couldn't give you directly when you asked him directly what you wanted. So we all get together and we were grading him and I'm saying, man, this guy is just horrible. And everyone thought, oh, Ernie, I think this guy's great. Look at his resume and blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, but what did he tell you? What did you actually probe into what he really knew about the topical matter? Or did you just get the veneer? And everyone just got the veneer. And I said, okay, I can't hire this guy for our team. And they said, yeah, but we all think he's good. I said, let's tell you what, let's bring him back. And then these are the questions that I want you to ask him. Very specific questions. And I want you to tell him the answer that you want. And I guarantee you, he will not be able to tell you the answer that you want because he can't understand the answer that you want. They said, wow, that's really weird. So the guy came in, they started grilling him. We were all in this small conference room, and it was really small. It was crowded. It was almost like an interrogation. And so one by one, we started asking him these questions and then demanding that he respond in a certain way, which he couldn't. It wasn't difficult. We just say, hey, we just want you to tell us that you do this, 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 and this, and what is the idea behind that? Couldn't do it. And he was sweating and just profusely sweating. And he had the inability to think outside the box or to give us what we wanted to hear. And so then after the interview, they were all like, wow, Ernie, you were right. This guy is just brain dead. I said, yeah, that's not the kind of guy we need to help integrate this $100 million company that you just bought. And you want to have some innovation. This isn't the guy. And so they all agreed, and we found some other more appropriate people that did fit the bill. But that's the same thing here. There are some people, some systems that just cannot produce what you want them to produce. So some people, they're going to talk to ChatGPT and not be able to get anything of quality out of it. That's just the way it's going to be. Unfortunately, that's how some people are. However, if you do have some good experience, some in-depth knowledge of something, and you can formulate a prompt that would create an avatar, a sort of a body of knowledge that would somehow find the tentacles of in the recesses of its memory and training to be able to grab the things that you want and put them together in a way that made a lot of sense. It's a huge time saver because you can create things that are really useful to other people and create it rather quickly. Now, could you use it? Let's see. I've got a couple of questions here. Tacos wants to know something completely different. What the fuck, Tacos? I'm talking about this. I'm not talking about the yield curve. Robro, the potential for erroneous results is likely higher than most would consider acceptable. That is true, but most wouldn't even notice, Robro. That's the thing. Most people wouldn't even notice. They would get the article back and they go, "Oh, this is a wonderful article. It mentions this, and has some insightful comments here or there." But someone who really understood the topic would look at this and say, "This is bland, man. It's just there's nothing new here." Or there could be factual mistakes in there that people wouldn't know. And that happened a lot also when I was using it to program stuff, because there were some things, just outright errors that it made in terms of like error handling, for instance, or it would just omit exception handling in a piece of code. That's where it finds different types of conditions that are out of bounds of what you want, and then to gracefully handle those conditions, and then so that the user doesn't get some weird message or something, right? But the code didn't really do that. So you had to make sure that it did that and then go back and say, hey, you didn't include the exception handling and it needs to look at this in this case. And then it will do it because you asked it to do it. But if you were creating a program and you had no idea what exception handling is, then it wouldn't do it and you get a piece of crap. Yeah, so that's really, and plus there may also be factually incorrect data. Now remember, it's going out to the internet. The internet is not the everything they say, hey, I found it on the internet or I found it on Wikipedia, so therefore it must be true, which is total bullshit, right? There's so much crap on Wikipedia and so much political bias that half the stuff is just bull, right? It's just not true. Yet people will think that it's true because it's on some authoritative source when it's really not authoritative. Now you go to something like Investopedia, for instance, you can more rely on that as being an authoritative source in its particular genre or its topical matter, and it's pretty good. And so if it came from there, then it's pretty spot on. There are some things even there that I find that are dated. So it will really depend on the person who is actually interacting with it, whether you get something good out of it. Now, the other problem with the output is that apparently the nature of the speech and the talk, or the way it links together or does its grammatical type of stuff, is almost like a signature that other tools can look at and say, hey, this was generated by an AI. And not only can they tell what AI that it was generated by an AI, but they can also tell what version of the AI it was generated by. So a lot of this stuff, you have to then take it and then massage it a little bit. You have to maybe reword it a bit, put it through Grammarly so that it has proper grammar, because it's not very good at grammar, by the way. And maybe put some more insightful things, add some character to the speech so that then when you push it through one of these filters that detects whether or not it has any plagiarism or it's AI generated, it can pass the muster. And it is then truly a unique piece that has quality content in it. So far, that ChatGPT can't produce that quality content first try that can pass the muster of one of these checkers. So that's a problem. However, there are ways to get around it. And like I said, if you understand what to do and how to make those corrections, then you can continually put it through that filter until you get a piece that, hey, you can't detect this. Now, there are also some other tools that are specifically designed to create like blog posts, like Jasper. And Jasper AI can, in fact, do a better job than ChatGPT on specific use cases, like producing blog posts that don't appear to be produced by AI. But I would imagine that's mostly because the AI checker probably doesn't have the signature of Jasper yet. However, it will also produce pieces that have less plagiarism. Now, the plagiarism part was a canard, because I looked at plagiarism, and these tools will say, hey, this piece appears to have been copied from this source, and this source. And then you go look at the sources and you say, yeah, it does have the same wording there, but how does it know that it came directly from this? And so just by making a few changes in the wording and then resubmitting it, it can say, oh, yeah, it is now plagiarism free. Or it could say that it came from a particular piece, and you're looking through the piece and you say, man, this is so generic. Anybody could have written this. It didn't have to be from here. So now the reason why I'm mentioning these filters that test for AI generation or plagiarism is that you have to think that if you're creating this content for a website and you want to get indexed and you want to get noticed on the internet and you want your search results to rise to the top, that if you can do this test and discover whether or not something is generated by AI and is plagiarized, then Google, who you're searching for content, quality content, can also do that search and then perhaps not give it the same kind of ranking as something that is truly an original piece. So that's another problem. Trying to overcome the AI and make it better. Now, will it be better when they come out with this new version 4.0 and it's 500 times better? Does 500 times better fix all the problems that I just talked about? I don't know. Now, I've been talking about this, man, for 35 minutes, and I haven't even talked about how it can make you a better trader yet. But this is what you have. This is the context that you need to come to in order to understand what a tool like this is so that you know its limitations, because a man's got to know his limitations. All right, let's see. Adam saying, "Hey, Ernie, you've mentioned your course being released soon. Any idea for that?" The course is, oh, no, I haven't come up with a release date yet. There's still a lot of work to do. There is still a lot of work to do, but soon. And I've been going through a lot of changes and business meetings with potential partners and funding and all kinds of stuff that are going to really increase the value of this service. You might want to just hold on. It's all coming. So Adam continues, wow, just realized kids will probably use ChatGPT for essays and high school work. Lucky punks. They're already doing that. As a matter of fact, most colleges are now having to adapt to the presence of ChatGPT because they now know that their students are going to be relying on this without the kind of knowledge that I just imparted on you, thinking that they can just generate something and then pass it off as original work to their professors. Now, the professors probably don't know either because they're mostly dumbasses. And they don't, because they're all in a cocoon, right? They just know their shit. But some of them are pretty smart, and schools in general are going to want to protect the quality of the institution by being able to recognize whether or not a student is plagiarizing or not really doing the real work and using some sort of canned tool to produce work. And then they don't want to go and give them a degree for something that wasn't their original work, because then the degree starts losing value and the school starts losing credibility if they allow that type of work to come through. So that is a big problem. You're absolutely right, Adam. Okay, Robro says, but Ernie, can ChatGPT make me a better Zero-DTE trader? He's trying to prompt me into I'm getting to it, all right? Hold your horses. Adam continues, will the course basically be what's already available as a member, just presented in a different format? Adam is focused. He's got myopic vision. What's that course going to be, Ernie? The course is going to be a basic course on trading the butterfly. It's going to be useful to everybody because, as Adam, if you're a member of this service, the strategy isn't what it's all about. Sure, we have a strategy, and some parts of it may be slightly proprietary, but it's pretty basic what we do. What this service is all about is coaching and mentoring and showing you how to develop your own trading process, strategy, methods, and that continuous improvement process that will set you on a path to becoming a long-term, consistent, profitable, professional trader. That's what this course is about. That's what this service is about, not about the course. And that's why I'm making the course free, because, hey, you can give that course out to anybody. And it's just like giving them ChatGPT and say, hey, you don't know anything about this, just ask it questions, and whatever it comes back with, you can pretty much rely on that being top-rate information. You won't know how to use it. So, sure, we're going to have the course internally, externally. There's going to be a lot of other stuff that's going to be internal that you'll never see externally. It's just like what I do here, Adam. I give you guys so much information. Probably 75% of what I tell you here is also in side. Obviously, that extra 25% is really where the value is. The real value is in the actual coaching, mentoring, keeping you accountable to what you're doing, helping you become a better trader, a better operator, right? So that's really what this is about. I give you, I think, valuable information so that you can see, hey, there's some good crap here. I wanted to get better crap in there. Or, hey, I trust Ernie because I've seen him over the years and he seems to know what he's talking about. I would like to join that as well. So that's why I do these shows, so that you can see it. That's why I've done 100 trades totally open, right out in the open here. I tell you information that you don't get anywhere else. Of course, the stuff that I'm talking about, ChatGPT, there are other experts that can tell you about this stuff. I guarantee you, though, there hasn't been a single investment or trading expert that has told you about ChatGPT at the depth that I have just told you. Probably the first there. But anyways, there you go. All right. So can ChatGPT make you a better trader? Yes, it definitely can. In the same way that your research can make you a better trader, in the same way that you instituting a continuous improvement process that continually urges you to do better and better at each individual aspect or fundamental thing that you do within your trading, teaching you how to develop habits and maintain those habits, a serial list of those habits to create a process that will be with you for the rest of your life, that you can apply to just about anything. Yes, ChatGPT will help you organize your thoughts. It will help you. Well, and that's probably the biggest thing. One of the hardest things about becoming a good trader is just taking in the plethora of information and coming up with a process that will allow you to slowly integrate into the way things are done and gain a deeper understanding. And by organizing things and putting them in a manner that is boilerplate, that helps a lot. Sometimes you don't have access to all the information, and by asking for it and getting it right away is a huge benefit. In fact, I think that I'm going to hire somebody, a programmer that knows the ChatGPT API, that's the application programming interface, and develop new tools, a different or a very specific type of chatbot that I'm going to call it the accountability buddy. It's going to be your Zero-DTE accountability buddy. And you can use the Zero-DTE accountability buddy based on this generative, predictive textual bot to ask it just about anything that you need to know about trading or about the process or about virtually anything that has to do with how we conduct business here and what you need to know to become a professional trader, right? And it will be your own personal coach, per se. It's like your self-coach. That's something I definitely have on my plate, and I am investigating right now. I need to find, hey, if you're a developer and you think that you can do something like that, let me know, right? I could do it myself, but I don't have the time. I have to actually run the business. And I'm sure that there are other people that actually have more up-to-date programming skills. Look, I'm an old guy, right? I've been around. I know how to program. I've probably generated a couple million lines of code myself, maybe more. But that was a long time ago. I've also been the architect or chief architect of a Fortune 50 company, higher level. I'm just not in the weeds, so to speak. But I know how to put the right people in the weeds to get things done. So if you're that person, let me know. All right. So some things that I did today with ChatGPT, the market is just fading away. What the hell's wrong with the market? Max wants to know, is there something you haven't done? No, I've been in sales. I've been in manufacturing. I've been in development. I've been in marketing. I've been in service industry. I've been in retail. I've been in defense. I've been in insurance. I've been in finance. I'm sure there's something there I missed. I haven't been in health. No, I have been in healthcare as well. I've developed a lot of medical equipment in my life. Just about everything. All right. What has ChatGPT done for me today? Let's see. I don't know. Let's see if I can bring this forward here. Where is it? All right. So I want to bring you through a conversation I had with it today. All right. Just to give you an idea. This is my session with ChatGPT. And over here are other sessions that I've had with it on the left-hand side. And so with this particular one, this is a new chat. I first started out by saying, act as if you were a trading coach and psychologist that was tasked with keeping me on track with my process and strategy. That's all I said, right? So I was setting the framework, the baseline of what I wanted ChatGPT to be, so that all of its other responses would somehow have that as a backdrop and draw on that type of experience. Wherever those tentacles led to other people that were trading coaches and psychologists out there, there could have been hundreds or thousands of other people out there that the data that they found in one way or another, where they produced blog posts or scholarly articles or websites or who knows, and all that stuff is in there. But now I'm trying to tap into it by saying, hey, act as one of those people. So that's the first step. And so it said, sure, I'd be happy to. It's important to remember that trading is a discipline that requires both a well-defined process and the emotional control to stick to that process. First, make sure you have a clear and defined trading plan that includes entry and exit rules as well as risk management guidelines. This plan should be based on your own personal trading style and goals and should be something that you are comfortable with and confident in. Horrible grammar, by the way. You don't end your sentence with a preposition. Anyways, next, it's important to have a clear understanding of your own psychological biases and emotional triggers and to be aware of them when trading. It's also important to manage your emotions by setting realistic expectations and by not letting the potential for large gains or loss influence your decision-making. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. So this is the basis by which ChatGPT is setting itself up for because of my little prompt up there. Right? And this is exactly the type of person that I want to be talking to. Although I'm not talking to a person, I'm talking to an AI, which is nothing more than a computer. All right. Finally, it's important to constantly review and evaluate your performance, both in terms of results you are achieving and the emotional control you are maintaining. This will help you identify areas of improvement to make any necessary adjustments to your process or strategy. Now, wouldn't this be the type of person that you would like to talk to on a daily basis that has this as their backdrop of what is important to them and their understanding of what you need in order to become a consistent, profitable, professional trader? Yeah, this is the person that you want, right? Let's see. It says it's also important to remember that successful trading is a long-term game. So many people don't know that. So many people think that hey, let's do a 1-week free trial and we're going to learn everything we need to know about that service. And I'm willing to pay them thousands of dollars to teach me something, teach me their strategy, their secret sauce. And then I will become a successful, profitable trader. That's bullshit. Never going to happen. Never will, ever. Right? That's not going to happen. It's a long-term game. You have to invest in something. You have to understand and become process obsessed. You're not going to get that by taking a 1-week trial to some bullshit alert service. If you could, then everyone would be doing it and we wouldn't have 98% of all day traders failing. But they do. Because you're a dumbass and you think that it's a short journey to success, and it's not. Even ChatGPT knows this. Man. All right. Keep in mind that it's always important to continue learning and developing your skills as a trader. And remember to take regular breaks and avoid burnout. That was good. That's pretty good. So obviously it found all this crap all over the internet from people who have relevant experience as trading coaches and psychologists that work with traders. And it was able to assemble all this just based on my little prompt there and regurgitate it all back to us so that I can see, yeah, that is what I want. So I continued. Now that I've got the context, it's good. I'm happy with that. I said, create an outline of a framework I can use to develop my process and plan. So it did that, right? And it did a really good job. Define your trading goals and objectives, research different trading strategies, create a trading plan, test your plan, implement your plan and monitor performance, continuously evaluate and improve, get a mentor and a coach. Huh? What? Huh? Yeah. Get a mentor and a coach. Like, duh. Did you know that Zero-DTE, that's a dash between the zero and the DTE, because without the dash, it's trash. Zero-DTE.com is not an alert service. It is a coaching and a mentoring service where we invest in your long-term consistency and professionalism. That's what we do here, right? We are credible. We're credible. Why are we credible? Because the guy who runs it happens to have 40 years of experience in the industry, been a hedge fund manager, been an institutional trader, been the chief technologist of a Fortune 50 company, has advised C-level folk from Fortune 5s to Fortune 1000s as their trusted advisor, has coached dozens and dozens of traders. That's why this is credible. Hey, sorry, let me get off my podium. Where are we? Oh yeah, get a mentor and a coach. Risk management. Keep learning. Now, in our case, we define our risk, and that's the way we manage it. By defining it, really there's no activity to do. Instead, we focus all of our efforts on profit management. And the reason why we can do that is that we employ a strategy that has asymmetric returns. In other words, it has very tiny risk with large potential profit. And so now you don't have to really sweat the risk. It is already defined for you. You just focus on the profit. If it goes to the risk side, so be it. That's the risk that we define. We accept it. We focus on the profit management. That's what pros do. Oh yeah, and keep learning. Never stop learning. Keep reading, keep learning, keep evaluating, and keep testing new strategies. Yes, that is very important. Not only to accumulate that knowledge, but also to keep your mind sharp. You always have to keep the mind going. It has to be exercised. Without exercise, the mind suffers from atrophy. That is what happens. So even an old fart like me still has a sharp mind. I don't know how sharp sometimes, but still very sharp enough to run circles around you for sure. Sorry. I'm sorry, getting a little filled up with myself. I'm getting excited about ChatGPT because it is a great tool if you know how to use it. So anyways, let's go on. The next prompt I gave it, I need a framework or process for identifying bad habits and fixing them with good habits. Wouldn't you like to know how to do that? And it provided that kind of information for me. Now I already know what that is and most of it, but there are some things that were insightful here that maybe I had stored away back in the back shelf of my mind, and it brought it forward for me. And it's good because now I see it. I go, yeah, that's right. Maybe I should incorporate a little bit more of that into what I'm doing. I forgot all about that. Oh my God. All right. All right. So basic framework, identify the habit, analyze the trigger, choose a replacement habit, plan for implementation, monitor your progress, get support, reward yourself, adjust as needed, keep learning. This is like the foundation of how to create habits, good habits. Now, this isn't telling me how to identify what my problem is or what my attachment is or what I'm suffering some mental delusion from, but this tells me that once I have found that and identified it and figured out what the source of that problem is, how to then create it or fix it with a new habit. Now, can I do that with just one session? I can do all of this in a day? No. Habits have a habit of lingering, and they take a long time to unlinger. There was somebody in my service that said, yeah, I read somewhere that it's 66 days in order to fully implement a habit. And I think that's probably true, 2 months, but I think it's probably closer somewhere in between 1 month and 2 months. but it's definitely not 1 day. It's not 1 week. It's not 2 weeks. It's not even 3 weeks. 4 weeks, absolute minimum. 8 weeks, yeah. I think that if you do something repetitively and you follow this framework, that yes, you can develop a new habit that you want, right? Obviously, you don't want to adopt a habit that you don't want. That would be really dumb. So anyways, then I followed up with the next prompt. I say, hey, take step 6 of the framework and develop a specific guidebook for continuous evaluation and improvement. So here, see, step 6 was way back here. See, continuously evaluate and improve. I wanted a process or a book that would show me how to do continuous improvement, because that's important. That's a crucial step in the process. As a matter of fact, our trading process, all successful trading processes and strategies are all built around continuous improvement. That's the agile way, right? So I say, hey, give me one of those. That's what I want. And so it gave me the framework for a continuous improvement process. Wow, this is really cool stuff. Now, like I said, I already knew most of this stuff. However, this allows me to organize my thoughts and then put it into something that I may have overlooked, or allow me to quickly and efficiently go and delve deeper into that and then develop a concept or an idea and then put my own 2 cents worth into it and then make it something really, truly useful for somebody and present it to them. This is a time saver, huge time saver. Now, I'm doing all of this from the perspective, let's go back to the big head here. I'm doing all this from the perspective of me, right? Not a trader. This is the coach talking. Hey, these are the things that I want. But you could just as easily, and maybe what I'll do is I will show you prompts that you can put into it to turn it into the kind of expert that you want as maybe your accountability buddy that will help you stay accountable to your decisions and your process and your strategy. So you chat with it and say, hey, I'm about to do this, ChatGPT or Zero-DTE bot. I'm about to do this. What do you think? And it will say something like, you dumbass. What the hell are you doing? That's not your strategy. This is your strategy. Stick to the plan, man. And that's what it will do. It'll help you stay on track. And then it will say something like, if you don't stick to your plan, I'm going to tell your wife that you did. So that's what my accountability buddy bot, my new thing that I'm going to develop, that's what it's going to do. All right. Here's another prompt. Let me show you. How can I identify patterns in my progress? Give specific examples. So that's good information. Man, whoever wrote these prompts must be oh God, they're brilliant. All right. So then I wanted to say, hey, create a habit tracking chart for me. Yeah, there's the bell. Market's over. Create a habit tracking chart for me. It even creates tables. Then I said, create an example of what that tracking behaviors would look like. And so it did it. So now I know what to expect. And I said, what other tools could I use to track my behavior? And it gave me all of these different apps and tools that I could use. I wanted to go even further. And so now I told it some specifics about my trading process and what that was all about, the strategy that we use in trading out of the money, asymmetric, directional butterflies, using our special sauce process, fed that into it, told it how I wanted to organize the profit management of that, and I wanted it to come up with a plan for me so that I could then, take that and in a very organized manner and then put it out to my peeps. And so it did that, and it showed me some examples of how it would do that. I said, create a prescriptive method for entering a trade after the market opens based on my description. It did it. Then I said, create an end of the week process for evaluating the trades taken during the week, accumulating trade log statistics and journal grades. Assemble the best examples of trades onto a template for inclusion into a playbook that keeps and organizes all the best trades. Organize the playbook by the grades given to each trade from the journal. So it did it for me. It did it. Then I said, man, I would really like some journaling apps, of which I think I'm going to create my own, because most of the journaling apps that it gave me were more generic. And when I started researching journaling apps. There's so few of them out there that are specific to options, and virtually none that are specific to trading 0-DTE. So I'm going to create my own journaling app. But it had a lot of good suggestions here. All right, then I said, create a profit management plan based on 0-DTE, OT, and butterfly. And I gave it all of this criteria, and plus all the other criteria that I'd already given it. And it gave me a time period by time period plan, but it gave me generic criteria. And so then I fed into it some more specific criteria. And that was okay. It added that specific criteria and it was better. Then I gave it some even more specific criteria, and then an idea of introducing gamma risk and other area that I should look at. And it created a more specific plan. And so that's where I stopped. And I said, hey, I got to get my act together. I have to come over here and tell you guys what an awesome tool that ChatGPT can be for you. So there you go. There you go. There's how ChatGPT can make you a better trader, make you a better person. Of course, you need to be a halfway decent person to begin with, because if you're a dumbass, then you're going to get dumbass answers, and then you'll just be spinning the wheel, the squirrel wheel, and getting nowhere. Or you could come and join my service. Give it a 4-week trial. The link's down below. You can learn all about this, how to become a profitable, consistently profitable trader. Learn these things for the long haul and become a pro at your craft. Learn how to become totally independent. That's what we do. We produce totally independent thinking traders that can do it all on their own and do it effectively. All right. I am done. That is it. Sayonara. Peace to you all. Love you. Time for the music.